Basically, what you're seeing is massive new entrant spending to acquire growth at all costs. And they said we looked at the new diners that we would get. They would order with Grubhub, and then they would order with other platforms. And so there's much lower diner loyalty. By leveraging non-partnered options, we believe we can more than double the number of restaurants on our platform in a year. There is a lot of material on this Grubhub situation. If you do have the time to read through basically what Grubhub did is they released a memo to shareholders in advance of their earnings call. So they released it the evening before. And the reason they did this is because there's a very strategic shift in how the company is going to move forward. You can see here that basically the tank has stocked. I mean, the stock has tanked. The stock has tanked. It was about $60 a share. Now it's about $34 a share.
So why was that? What was the big news?
So it's a very good read. And I do want to commend Matt Maloney, the CEO and co-founder, in terms of how they're taking this on. We've talked a lot on the show about Uber Eats, about DoorDash.
Their competition.
Their competition in food delivery. And Grubhub is in Platt. They've been a dominant food delivery platform for a long time. Couple points of context before we dig into this. Grubhub's historical traditional business model has been two-sided, not three-sided. We've spoken about how Uber Eats is three-sided, where you have the customer, you have the restaurant, and then you have the delivery driver, basically, or
originally Grubhub didn't have the delivery people. It was just restaurants who had their own delivery people connecting with customers. Now they've started to add basically the delivery driver, third side of the network, as a service to restaurants who don't want to have their own delivery staff, which is how Uber Eats operates, which is how DoorDash operates. So their newer competition is doing this, and they had to respond.
Exactly. Now, one of the value props we talk about for platforms is that you have the widest product catalog selection, right? We're going to get to that on the next topic in terms of linear e-commerce SKUs. But right, you have the widest product catalog, especially for any kind of product or service marketplace, like a food delivery platform. You want to have all the restaurants. I want to have all the availability that's out there. And now you're delivering me convenience and all these kinds of things, right? In-home delivery. So Grubhub was slower to make a three-sided marketplace and bring delivery in-house. In the past, they would say, hey, you're the restaurant. You figure out delivery and you figure out how to get the food to the customer, but we're bringing you the customer, right? They have partner restaurants. And so basically the partners are are basically paying Grubhub a fee, but the price that the customer sees for the food should be, maybe not always, but should be the same price that they see as if they were to go to the restaurant directly and order the food, right? So what does that mean? That means that the customer is not affected, but that Grubhub is being paid by, basically a take rate by the restaurant, and the restaurant's figuring out fulfillment on their own. Okay. Interesting. All of that comes to the point where Grubhub has a smaller product catalog than these aggressor delivery platforms like an Uber Eats. They don't reference Uber Eats, but they basically call out Uber Eats multiple times.
That's because if I'm a restaurant that doesn't have my own delivery service or my own delivery people, in the past I couldn't list on Grubhub. But now these basically Uber Eats said doesn't matter what you have, if you're McDonald's even, who doesn't have their own delivery service or hadn't for a very long time, whatever it is, we'll take you on if we think your food's a good fit and we want to sell you to our customers, and they'll handle the delivery because obviously if I'm Uber, I have all the drivers already. Yeah.
So basically what you're seeing is, and what they describe in this memo is massive new entrant spending to acquire growth at all costs and do it in an unprofitable way. Grubhub is profitable. And so Grubhub has continued to try to grow, and they have had double-digit growth. But what they're saying is that we need to change our strategy and address this. And so there's a number of key points in here, but I really want to drill in on this one. So I'll just read this out. We know from experience the single biggest determinant of diners' usage on marketplaces is whether it has the restaurants that the diner wants. Makes sense. Historically, we have chosen to only list partnered restaurants on Grubhub. We still firmly believe this is the right way to build the marketplace and is the only way to drive long-term value for all the participants. Okay, here's the money or the lighting money on fire part. But it also takes longer to build the network this way. Partnering takes a lot of work. Others, Uber Eats and delivery, DoorDash and all these places, others have chosen to list non-partnered restaurants on their marketplaces and have generated strong diner and order growth despite high diner pricing and challenging economics. Right now, our existing and new potential diners find more restaurants on other platforms. We need to eliminate this difference, and speed is paramount. Okay, this means we've got to change course and we've got to do it fast. This is really the crux of it. A few supporting notes on this, which I thought were really interesting. I listened to their quarterly earnings call. It was this week. I think it was Tuesday morning. Yeah, Tuesday morning. And so they spoke a lot about looking at cohorts. And as a refresher for folks that don't know what a cohort, basically what you do is you look at a segment of your audience or your customer base. And so they are divvying up cohorts and saying, let me look at my new diners, right? New customers that I've attracted in. And they have historical data to say, okay, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, a year ago, what was the behavior of new diners that join my platform? And they have some kind of CAC associated with that, cost of customer acquisition. And the key thing for any business is, what is my CAC to LTV ratio? LTV is lifetime value. So what you want to look at is say, okay, I spent X to acquire this customer. Okay. How much did this customer continue to use my product? Did that usage increase or decrease over time? What is each average customer worth to me?
And how long does it take me to make back that acquisition?
How long does it take me to break even? How long profit? And all of that basically means the ideal thing you want to look for is a 3-to-1 CAC to LTV ratio. Basically, that you can make three times the amount. Your LTV is at least 3 times as high as what it costs for you to acquire that customer.
And typically, you want to look at VC economics. They would look for, you want to make that back in 6 months. So you want to get 1-to-1 within 6 months and ultimately reach a 3-to-1 ratio for that customer.
So
the sooner the better.
So Grubhub looks at this data very closely. And so they're looking at these and they're saying, oh, well, in August, they said, okay, so this is what's really interesting. It is now October. And in August, they said it really started to change for them. It was the tipping point when they were doing these cohort analyses. And they said, we looked at the new diners that we would get, and they started to, basically what they said is they started to order. They would order with Grubhub, and then they would order with other platforms. And so there was much lower diner loyalty in the sense that they would use Grubhub interchangeably with other places. What really mattered was, could I order from specific restaurants that people wanted to order from? This is a big problem. Grubhub has spoken now that this has also started to seep into their existing customer cohorts. So they're seeing now, not just in the new diner cohort, but now existing analyses, existing customers, that this is starting to creep into that.
I can definitely speak to that personally. Used to traveling a lot, busy, used to order on Grubhub frequently, and then Uber Eats is basically, and DoorDash to a lesser extent, have basically overtaken that. And unless there's a specific place I want and the others don't have it, I don't order as much from Grubhub anymore. And I used to be, a loyal Grubhub customer, and that ability to go elsewhere is just because they have more inventory. That's the short version. That network effect there is stronger.
Exactly. So what this means is that Grubhub is going to invest heavily in acquiring more salespeople, so that they can try to both get restaurants to be a partner restaurant with them, but now to also go and sign up non-partner restaurants. So what that means is basically, if I'm Grubhub, I'm going to make much less money on every order going to a non-partner restaurant. But what they're saying is, I need to just retain my customers.
Right. I need the inventory.
I'm getting leakage.
Even
or
if I'm
they're
not
leaving.
making money on all of their orders, at least I'll make money on some of them. And if I don't, rather than losing them basically and then not coming back and then I don't make any money.
And then the next point here talks about diner loyalty, and all these kinds of things, right? But I'll jump down right here, right? So for restaurant inventory, we will rapidly expand our recent pilots of putting non-partnered restaurants on the platform. For reasons we've discussed many times, we believe non-partnered options are the wrong long-term answer for diners, restaurants, and shareholders. It is expensive for everyone, a suboptimal diner experience, and rife with operational challenges. With that said, it is extremely efficient and cheap to add non-partnered inventory to our platform, and it can at least ensure that all of our current and potential new diners have the option to order from any of their favorite restaurants now, even if it's not the best solution.
Right. Basically, they have to go scrape a bunch of menus from websites, and then you can just put it on their platform and say, hey, we'll send you orders.
So by leveraging non-partnered options, we believe we can more than double the number of restaurants on our platform in a year, basically, by the end of 2020.
Pretty big difference.
Which is a massive growth when you think about it. And when you think about their existing
been around for,
diner presence.
Decade plus, and to say that, hey, we can double our restaurants in a year is a pretty big change.
Exactly. So basically, this means their margins are getting rocked. They're investing heavily in bringing on more headcount. They're now catering and their core transactions. So the money they make per order, which is a huge KPI that they track, gets nuked because now that goes way down on the transactions for non-partner restaurants. But they need growth, or they need to retain these customers. They need to be able to continue to grow, and they need to be able to retain their existing customer base. This is a great example of platform wars. I think this is a great example of when platforms battle, the users win, both consumers and producers. Non-partner restaurants are winning from this too, because now I can get demand from Grubhub and I don't have to pay them fees, or I don't have to pay them the same,
at least in the short term,
level of fees and lock-in. Grubhub goes on to talk about Level Up. They bought Level Up, which is a point of sale platform. And so what's interesting to me is that Caviar was just ripped out from underneath Square, which had a bundled the Square point of sale and Caviar bundling.
Right. They sold it to DoorDash for $400 million, roughly.
I think Square saw that this fight was just gonna continue to heat up.
Yep.
And they could make some money. I think they bought Caviar for about $100 million. So they 4X their investment.
Yep. You've seen some consolidation, I think, in Europe as well, where you have similar kind of battles going on. I wouldn't be surprised to see even more consolidation continuing to happen in the US.
Now, the key is to get this partner inventory. So outside of just having outsized demand, and that is the mechanism that you use to get restaurants to partner up with you and basically pay you more fees, right? How else do you do that? And I think that's where this Level Up thing gets kind of interesting. Yep. I wouldn't be surprised. It really depends on how aggressive Dara at Uber wants to be, or potentially DoorDash as well. This would be interesting between, is Dara really feeling the heat from investors? How much is he feeling heat from investors? How aggressive does he want to be?
To turn a profit.
Because if I was Dara, or if I'm DoorDash, this point of sale thing I think is very interesting to me. Would I go buy Toast, for example? Another
big point of sale startup.
Big point of sale startup. I think it's a unicorn. I think they've probably raised like $400 or $500 million. But there's a few of these big up and coming point of sale systems that have heavy penetration with who? Restaurants. And what are these sticky linear services that you can layer into your solution to try to just further embed yourself with the supply? Because clearly the
makes
supply
it harder to leave the platform, makes it harder to switch if, I'm going to lose all this other stuff too. And maybe I pay for some of it, but it all works together and makes the experience or difficulties of running a restaurant, of which there are myriad, much easier if it all kind of works together in one place. So there's definitely some synergies there.
So what's one takeaway from this? Supply really is king.
Yep.
And Nick's mic cut out when we were talking about this. We were talking about our friend. He is a friend. I respect him a lot for a lot of what he writes about. But one point that he got wrong maybe a couple weeks ago.
Ben Thompson.
Yeah. What was his? Was he talking about Netflix?
Talking about I think in the context, maybe it was Uber or something like that, and said supply doesn't matter. It's all about aggregating demand, basically.
It was Uber. Or he's talking about just aggregating demand and supply doesn't matter.
Something like that.
Yeah. It was about the driver stuff. Well, here is a great scenario, and we were talking. You couldn't hear Nick's side of it though, but we were basically talking about how supply is absolutely paramount for platforms. Netflix, which he recognized as an aggregator, we do not recognize as a platform. We think Netflix is going to have a hard time because it doesn't have a supply side network effect, because it's
linear. It owns and licenses and creates all its own content. There's no third party creator that it's connecting with customers.
It's not as defensible. It doesn't have a moat. It doesn't have a network effect. It doesn't have a winner take all.
Right. Its moat is basically how much it's going to spend on content this year and next year.
Which, as we are seeing, AT&T just got for $500 million. South Park, by the way. Yep. But yeah, it's how much money, how much dry powder do you have? How much you're going to spend? This is how do you capture it, right? So I can spend money, but how do I get these restaurants? And so these are basically hacks. These non-partner restaurants are basically a hack to get access to supply. But now, how do I get those restaurants to work more closely with me? And that is yes, you can spend money, but now how can you make that a sticky value prop where they are now working with you and a producer, a more closely aligned producer on the platform? So this will be very interesting to see how this pans out. Grubhub got a huge haircut. I don't know if the haircut was this justified. They did not provide 2020 guidance, which I think really freaked out their investors, rightly so. But basically, Grubhub is going to war.
Right. And our unit economics are going to suck basically on at least half of our orders if we're adding 50, another doubling our number of restaurants. Unit economics will be terrible. Well, we have to do this to grow. If you don't have the supply, you lose that network effect. The only time supply doesn't matter if you basically have a monopoly and there's no effective competition. And then it's really about, I have the demand. Where else are you going to go? But when you have these platforms competing against each other, where they usually compete is on the supply side, at least as much as on the demand side. And you're seeing that here with Grubhub, where they've lost out because they've gotten left behind on the supply side in a big way.
Yeah. It's interesting. There's going to be more consolidation because you have DoorDash, which bought Caviar, right?
Yes.
You have Postmates, which is trying to go IPO.
Or get acquired or something to that effect.
Now you have Grubhub and you have Uber Eats.
Right.
There's definitely not room for four. So I think if Grubhub can show that they can fight back and put a dent, it gives them much more leverage to look at then merging or acquiring
a Postmates or something like
Postmates. That. Postmates is much smaller than a DoorDash.
Yeah.
I think DoorDash probably has a higher valuation than Grubhub.
Yes.
Interestingly enough. So, so Grubhub is now coming from behind, essentially, at least on the two major players.
Right.
We've already spoken about how I think, Uber Eats not dwarfs, but definitely has more GMV than DoorDash and Grubhub in food delivery. So Uber Eats is, again, we are seeing platform conglomerate versus platform specific businesses. And we've said before in the past, we're bullish on Uber overall long term. Uber's earnings come out on Monday. And I think we are seeing those advantages really play into, and Grubhub mentions it in this letter, that a national competitor with a national fulfillment capability came into the space and basically rocked our world.
Who could that be?
Exactly. Hi, this is Alex from Winner Take All. Thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the content. Feel free to leave a comment, ask us questions, and definitely make sure to join us on our next live stream.